Okay, so I think we have a good amount of people here, so we might as well get started now. So, like I was saying to everyone who got here very early on, I'm going to use the raise hand system. So if you have a raise hand button on your Zoom, please make sure at certain points that you just raise your hand, so I know how many people are part of something, how many people are using a certain service, just to make it more interactive, I suppose. So just to start with, how many people are currently using Arthur Online as a system in their day to day? Can you just raise your hand for me? Okay, fantastic, amazing. And then if you can just lower your hand once I've asked a question, that would be great as well. Thanks so much, everyone. Amazing. And do we have any new users of Arthur who have never signed up for a free trial, who are just looking to find out a little bit more about the letting side and the tenancy onboarding? If you could raise your hand, that would be great. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So can everyone see my screen? Yep. Perfect. Amazing. So my name is Max. I am Senior Business Development Associate at Arthur Online. So it's my job to make sure that you, one, understand how the system works if you're completely new to Arthur, but also to make sure that you understand how it works, if you've been using Arthur for, a couple of months, a couple of years even, or a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible and that we can cover as many things as we can. So if you guys just have a look through this copyright notice, I'll leave this up for just 20, 30 seconds, just so you know about this webinar. So just no reproduction of this. Don't want to see it on your guys' websites. Okay. So if anyone has any questions during the webinar, please feel free to just send a message on the chat. I'll receive it, and then if I have time to answer it, I'll make sure to answer it, there and then. Or if we need to leave it to the end, I will do that as well. Okay. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to go through a couple of things. So what is the tenancy journey? A bit about applicants and viewings, prospective tenancies, approved tenancies, and then kind of a short Q&A if anyone has any questions to start with. All right. Is there anything else you want me to cover when we go into kind of live demo? Please do let me know and we'll go through that as well. So in terms of the tenancy journey, so Arthur is, as you all know, a cloud-based system. We deal with an end-to-end management system. So from the moment an applicant comes into your portfolio to the moment they leave, we deal with that whole journey. Now, today we're just going to cover the beginning bit. So when an applicant inquires to when they become a current tenant, that's when we're going to stop. So has everyone been using the entire tenancy journey at the moment, from applicant all the way through to current tenancy? Can you just raise your hand? Amazing. Fantastic. The way everything works in Arthur is it always starts from an applicant. So what will happen is, either using the applicant form or via someone coming through your website or through Rightmove, Zoopla, Facebook Marketplace, StuRent, if you're integrated with those portals, you can basically add the applicant to Arthur. Now, once they're added to Arthur, you will then be able to, have a lot of automation around that entire process. So if you can see on this screen, everything in green that's highlighted with kind of like a dotted line says automated messages and tasks with embedded checklists are points in the system where we believe you could have automated actions that would send to your applicants or your tenants. So for example, an applicant comes in, they would then move over to a viewing, let's say within Arthur. Now, within that viewing, you might want to have it send an automatic message to them because you might be, emailing them separately. So if you have the automation in the system, you'll then be able to automatically send them, the message for, hi there, your viewing is at this time on this date for, with this property manager, and you won't have to kind of have that double entry. But we've also got the ability to send, unit tenants a message. So when you do have a viewing, making sure that the unit tenants are aware that there is a viewing going on, as well as a couple of other things. So things that I've picked up on from talking to, a number of clients is that people like to have a a viewing reminder that sends out, let's say, 2 hours or 3 hours before the viewing is due, just so that they can get the applicant to tell them if they can make it still, or if they have to kind of make a wasted journey. Does everyone have that set up in their automation at the moment, just by a show of hands? Does anyone use that kind of automation? Okay, fantastic. So not so many. So we'll go through how we can set that up if that's something that's going to be really vital to your business if you're using it from a viewing perspective. Now, in terms of a question we just got asked, the full flow is on our knowledge base. What I'll do is that when we send the follow-up email, I'll put that full flow on there also, but it gives you the whole breakdown of everything from applicant to when they move out and they expire. So after the viewing, what you'd want to do is that you'd want to then add them as a prospective tenant. So, they've had the viewing, they really enjoy what they see, they're happy with, the rental amount, and you then want to reference them or credit check. Now, again, by a show of hands, who uses advanced tenant referencing through our system, or who has heard that we work with advanced tenant referencing? Okay, so again, about 30% of people are using advanced tenant referencing. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to do a full reference on the individual that is looking to move into a property. So we work with advanced tenant referencing for referencing, and we work with Cool Credit for credit check. So if you just want to do a basic credit check before doing a full tenancy reference, Cool Credit would be the best one to use from there. So in terms of once the reference is passed, they would then be moved to an approved tenancy. And at that point, you would send, the ASTs, and you would send all the relevant documentation. So the right to rent, the EPC, the gas safety, etc. Now, out of the kind of 24 or so people who are using the system currently, how many of you are using mail merge, just by a show of hands? Okay, fantastic. So about 50%. So in terms of what mail merge does, a lot of you might be using a DocuSign or Adobe Sign separately from our system. We actually integrate directly with Signable, and we have what's called a mail merge function. Now, what that means is that you would upload your AST into Arthur. You would then simply fill in your AST with what's called Arthur variables. So, where you would normally have to fill in the start date, you'd put a variable of Arthur start date. And then when you add the tenancy to Arthur, you simply have to click a button and all their information will automatically populate into that contract for you. No more double entry, no more having to add, the tenancy on Arthur and also on your third-party system. It's all done through one place. And at that point, you would then, send them all the other documentation. You'd send them a message saying, hi, you've passed your references, you've passed your credit check. Here's what we need from you. And at that point, you can also send them a full applicant form. Now, does everyone know about the application form and how many people have been using it, again, by a show of hands? Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So in terms of the applicants and viewings, so what we'll talk about is adding applicants to Arthur, scheduling a viewing, conducting a credit check, and then certain automations around that entire process. In terms of the differences between the tenancy types, so we have prospective and we have approved. Now, a prospective tenant is a tenancy that has applied to move in, but they have not signed their contract. So, they're ready to be referenced, etc. Then you would do the reference, you would do, the credit check. You would then, after they've passed that, send them the contract and get them to sign via Signable. And then you have a lot of automations around that also. I saw the question that's just been raised. That would, if you're having an issue with your tenancy agreement, just come onto the chat after, and one of our team will be able to sort that out for you. In fact, if you want to come onto the chat while we're having this webinar, feel free to, and I'm sure that one of the team will get in touch with you. Okay. Perfect. And then in terms of approved, so approved is a tenancy that it's waiting for its move-in date. And again, we can base the automations around that as well. Right, so any questions about what we've spoken about initially before we jump into the live demo and we can walk you through a couple of things? I'll give about 30 seconds for people to write any questions if they have any. Okay. Yes, I will show you the application form. Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for asking it. And yes, the answer is you will get a recording. So this will be on YouTube by probably end of today, if not today, tomorrow. So just check out our YouTube channel, Arthur Online, and you'll be able to see it from there. Okay. In terms of the flowchart is on our knowledge base. And again, I'll put that in the email that we follow up you with. Perfect. Right. Any more questions? Cool. So by show of hands, can everyone see my dashboard? Yep, fantastic. So you're all probably, or most of you are probably very aware of what this is. This is the Arthur Online dashboard. It's what you see the first moment that you log into the system. But what most of you might not know is, a couple of things that are really important on this dashboard. So we integrate with Rightmove and Zoopla. If you have a Rightmove and Zoopla account already, you can integrate that via our portals. We also integrate with StuRents for student accommodations, and we also integrate with Facebook Marketplace. And Facebook Marketplace is completely free to use, and it's been having, quite a bit of success at the moment, which is great. So if you haven't learned about how to integrate that, please check out our portal webinar on our YouTube channel, and you can see all about how those portals work and how they can connect to Arthur. So what would happen is that an applicant would come through and they'd come into new applicants today, and you'd be able to then see exactly who they were. You'd be able to see everything about them, and it's all just stored in the system. Hang on 1 second. Right. So what will happen is that an applicant will come into the applicant section. It will have their name, it will have a source, it will have their phone number, their mobile number, their work, and their email. Now, by show of hands, has anyone connected Arthur to their website via our open API? Okay, quite a good amount. So we have what's called an open API, which allows you to connect certain parts of Arthur to your website. So at the moment, if you're taking inquiries through your website and then having to manually add them to Arthur, it's worth having a look at our API documentation and then maybe building in certain parts of Arthur to your website, so that when an applicant comes in via your website, it actually comes straight into the applicant section here. Or if you want to showcase your properties, again, that will feed over from Arthur onto your website. So if anyone wants to talk about that, my email is max.gray, Gray, at arthuronline.co.uk. If you want to talk about the Arthur API and how it can connect to your website, just drop me an email after and we can talk about it from there. Now, when an applicant gets added, it will have their basic information. So it will have their email, their work, their, the source. And what I can then do from there is I could go ahead and I could either edit my applicant, so I could add more information to them in terms of their personal details, or I could go ahead and just add them directly to a viewing. If they've come in through your website or through Rightmove, Zoopla, Facebook Marketplace, etc., what you would have is you'd be able to search for a unit. So I'd be able to say, right, so they're going to be on this unit. And then what I can do is I can say, I want them to view the property on this date at this time. And then I can assign it to a specific member of my team as well. So this is great if you have, a lettings agent, or if you're a self-managing landlord who has, people who specifically do the viewings for you. You can assign that to a specific member of the team, and then also write down some notes about that applicant. Now, what we have here is we have these automated events. Now, how many people are using these at the moment when they add a viewing? Okay, amazing. So the main ones that are just standard in the system would be to notify the viewer of the appointment. So what would happen is that it would pull in all the information about that viewer. So dear, let's say, Max, this email is to confirm your viewing at 30 Bowlerfield Road, Camden on the 27th of January at this time, based on the information you've put in. So no more need to have to email them separately. It's all on the system. And then regards, property manager. So we'll have the name of the property manager who's doing the viewing. So really great to just make sure that you can automate a lot of the manual processes that you're probably going through at the moment. What you've also got here is notifying the unit tenants of a viewing. So what you can see here is that you can notify them of a viewing. So dear Max, this email to confirm we have an applicant to view on this date and this time. So you can customize these in the back end of the system. So you can change this to say whatever you want. You can say, hi everyone, we've got an applicant coming to visit the property on this date and this time. If you want to converse with them, please be in the property. If you don't, please go out to the shops or something. Whatever you want to say to them can be done through the automation side of things. Now, how many people would be interested to learn about how to add the kind of 2-hour, 3-hour reminder before a viewing to send to their tenants, just by a show of hands? Okay, amazing. Let's go into that shortly. So the automation part of the system is very simple once you understand it, but complex if you've never used it before. So if I go into automation, how many of you have ventured into this part of the system before, by a show of hands? Okay, amazing. So this is everything that can be automated in the system. Now, the things we're going to cover at the moment today in this specific tenancy journey is the applicants. So what happens, around triggers when an applicant might be added to the system, around the viewing side of things. And also we're going to talk about, the tenancy journey. So what we can put in at an approved stage or a prospective stage. So when it comes to applicants, a lot of you might kind of have these applicants slip through the cracks sometimes, or you might have to wait until the next day to be notified about them. If you want to be notified as soon as an applicant gets added, you can add an action around this trigger. So when an applicant is added, I could add an action. I could put in the action name, so, notify me, and then I could just apply a process. So it can automatically send you a notification on your mobile, it can send you an SMS, or it can send you an email, whichever one works for you, which is really, really great, just to make sure that, you can have that best customer satisfaction. As soon as an applicant comes in, bam, you're on the phone to them, you've sorted out a viewing, and then that whole process begins, which hopefully will help you, let more rooms and have that higher occupancy rate. Now, in terms of setting these viewing reminders, again, this will be on YouTube, so you can have a look after. But in terms of setting that 2-hour viewing reminder, what you would want to do is you'd want to go to automation and you'd want to go to add a custom trigger. So if I add a custom trigger, what I would then do is I would go to viewings. Now we have multiple things that we can add around the viewings. We can either add actions when a viewing is created, when a viewing is updated, when a viewing is updated or created, or the one that we're going to use, which is a timed custom trigger, which means that we can set a trigger, to go a certain amount of time before a viewing. So if I go to timed, what I could say is I could say 2-hour viewing reminder, okay? And what I would then do is I would set my conditions. So this is where it gets really important to listen out. So the viewing time would be 120 minutes before, let's say, because it would be 2 hours before. And the viewing date is, and you just have to type in today. Don't click the today button, just type in today. So what this means is that any viewings that we have today, it will remind the person who's, either viewing or the prospective applicant 2 hours before that they are, that they have this viewing, and when would they like to, are they still coming? Does that make sense to everyone by show of hands? Yeah, fantastic. So what we would want to do then is we'd want to save this trigger. So we save this trigger around the system, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add an action. So email to send to tenants. And what you want to do is just make sure that it's, automatically checked as well, so that it just automatically runs in the background. So what you then do is that you would apply a process, e.g. send email. You'd want to send a message if it was an email, or what some people like to do, just by show of hands, how many people are using SMSs through the system? Okay, fine. And how many people have not heard that we even do SMSs through the system, that you can send SMSs through the system? Fine. Okay, well, that's really good to know. So quite a few people didn't actually know that we do SMSs. So we work with a company called Fast SMS. So rather than you having to send, an email For more pressing matters, you can actually send text messages to your tenants. Now, they are one way only, but that's why you want to say in the message, if you want to reply to this, please call us on this number or please message us on this number. But it just means for those more urgent things, such as, let's say, if you ever have to serve a notice or if you have late rent reminders, that you might want to have a text message go out along with an email, which is really, really good in terms of how that all works. We'll go through the SMSs in a little bit of time. So what I'd do is I'd send a message, which is an email in this example. I'd send it to prospective viewers, and then I would be able to put in my subject. So your viewing reminder at, and then you can just put unit on, and then you would put, so right click to get these variables up, by the way, guys. So, if you left click, it won't do anything. You have to right click and then these variables will come up. So you can put in viewing date and also viewing time. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to write out your message. So hi to first name. So that would pull in their name. You have a viewing at, the viewing date and the viewing time. If you can't make it, please make sure to contact the office on, and let's say 0000. So whatever message you want to say, and then just say kind regards, and then put in the name of the property manager. So just property manager. And it will just pull in the property manager who is actually assigned to that viewing. Was that helpful, that tip and trick, just by raise of hands? Amazing. Glad to hear. And if there's any other automations that you want to learn about, again, please feel free to email me on max.gray, gray, at arthuronline.co.uk, and we can talk through these processes in a little bit more detail. I've got all the time in the world for everyone here, so please make sure that you do, get on that if you do have any questions, okay? So what I'd then do is I'd simply go ahead and save that action. And we've now got that automation added in the viewing section as that 2-hour viewing reminder, and it's running and it's active. Okay, perfect. So in terms of the SMS side of things, so if you go to the Arthur store, we have a lot of different third-party products that we work with. One is Signable, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But then we also have the SMS side of things. So if you go to SMS, it's called Fast SMS that we work with. Very, very affordable. If you buy 1,000 in bulk, it costs 3p per message. So if you're sending out, very crucial messages that require a text message, 10 tenants or something, it's going to cost you 30p. But at least they get that message as well as the email, so it doesn't get drowned in their, hundreds of emails per day. Okay. Perfect. So we do have a couple of questions. Is Signable a separate paid for service? So the answer to that is yes, it is a separate paid for service, but it's integrated into the system. So when we first started, we wanted to be, 100% property management, and we then wanted to integrate with, the best in class with accounting packages, so Xero and QuickBooks, and we also now have the live bank feed, which is great. So with the live bank feed, it will allow you to, if you're not using Xero or QuickBooks already, to connect your client account directly to Arthur and then reconcile your rents inside. Now that webinar is also on the YouTube channel if you want to check that out if you haven't seen it already. But in terms of the Signable side of things, so yeah, that's another integration that we have, but we charge by an envelope. So if you have a property that has 6 tenants in it, but it's all under one AST agreement, so they're all signing the same agreement, you would send the AST in one envelope along with the right to rent documentation, let's say, along with the EPC, the gas safety, the EICR, any relevant certification, and then they'd be able to see all of that in one envelope, which would then be charged as one envelope. Now, the minimum that it will cost on Signable would be 45p per envelope, but if you are using a third-party system or if you're having to do things manually at the moment, it's a great return on investment because it means that everything's logged in one place. And then we have another question. Did you say there is a link to Spare Room as well as Rightmove? Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have an integration with Spare Room. We have integrations with Rightmove, Zoopla, Rents was maybe the one you were thinking about, and also Facebook Marketplace. And the way that you can find these is if I go onto properties and I go to portals. If you did want to enable these portals, you would just go to here. You could go to more info and then just subscribe to this service, let's say. Okay, perfect. Now, in terms of when the viewing's done, what you'd want to do is you'd want to go ahead and you'd probably want to add them as a tenant. So you'd have a tenancy. Let me just find one. So you'd have a tenancy. So let's just say Max Gray is in, demo house. Okay. You've got a little bit of information from them from when they logged in and when they sent their information to you, or when you had that initial phone call to get them in as an applicant, to get them to the viewing stage. But now what you want to do is you want to get a little bit more information from them. Now, by a show of hands, who is on either the professional or enterprise package of Arthur? Okay. Fantastic. And who is currently on the standard package of Arthur? Fantastic. And just by a show of hands, again, who is not using Arthur at the moment? So who is just using this webinar to find out a little bit more about Arthur itself? Okay, fantastic. So the reason I ask about this is because what we have is that we have the application form, which can only be used on the professional or enterprise package. So if you want to get information from your tenants, that doesn't involve you having to email them a big list, getting them that list back, and then uploading that into Arthur. What you can do is that you can send them this, which is called a tenant application form. Now, everyone on the professional and enterprise package will have access to this. All you'll have to do is you'll have to, have this link and just put your what's called slug into this link. So mine is Max Gray 2, but you might have, your own one if you're on the professional and enterprise package. If you're not happy with your slug, we can change it for you, to make it whatever name you want, providing it's available on our system. So again, if you want to let me know about that, then please do. I see a couple of people raise their hands. If you have a question, can you ask it on the chat? Because while I can see you're raising your hands, I can't hear you. So that would be great if you could ask some questions, and I'll just stop for now. So a slug is basically how we recognize you in the system. So I'm known on my applicant form as Max Gray 2. There might be other people who are known as, their name, or it might be their company name. So again, if I go into my tenancy, you see here. So if you log onto your Arthur Online account, this is your slug. So the bit just after arthur.online.co.uk. So if you want to have a look at that and then let us know, then that would be great. How do I know what Arthur package I have? Very good question. So what you want to do is, if you are on a package of Arthur, just go to the Arthur store down here on your account, go to billings and payments, and then you'll be able to go to kind of manage subscription. And from there, you'll be able to see exactly what package you're on. It will say, selected package. So that's how you'll know what package you are on. Okay. But yes, this tenant application form has everything, that you could possibly want, really. So, personal details, contact details, residential status, but a lot of these things might not be relevant to your specific portfolio. So what we can do if you're on the professional and enterprise package is we can actually bespoke this for you. So rather than saying Arthur, it will have your logo, it will have all the details that's relevant to your specific setup. And then you can embed that into an automated event to send to the tenant as soon as they have passed their references and they've moved to that approved tenancy stage. Okay. Can our slug be changed? Yes, it can. So if you email me after on max.gray@arthur.online.co.uk and let me know what you'd want to change your slug to, we can see if that's available and then just change it in the system for you. Okay. Perfect. Now, people on the professional or enterprise package, we're going slightly on a tangent here. Also, people on standard, who is using or optimizing the tenant app at the moment once they become a current tenant, just by show of hands? Okay, amazing. And who is not using the tenant app at all? So who hasn't sent the app to their tenants at all by using Arthur? Okay, so quite a lot of people actually. Okay. Okay, one question. Sorry, how do you see the application form? So what I'll do as well is I'll make sure to send round a link to view the application form after the webinar as well. But it is on our knowledge base if you go to the applicant form. So in terms of the Tenant app, so firstly, I find this a lot when I talk to people on their accounts. So a lot of people who are on professional and enterprise package have the ability to white label their account up here. So put their colors and put their logo. Now, if you go to your account and you go to, if you have a professional enterprise package, just check this in your own time. If you go to preferences and you go to personalized account, make sure that you have your logo in here, but you also have your logo on the Tenant mobile logo. If you don't, it means that on the Tenant app, they're going to see the Arthur logo rather than your own branding. And that's, you're paying for the professional package to one, have that white labeling ability along with a lot of other things. So make sure that that's actually, filled in so that you get that brand identity and brand awareness to your tenants. So your question, would this not be issued before you carry out the referencing, etc., as it collects the details required? So the referencing company that we work with, you don't need to have all their details in there. You just need their address, a couple of other bits and pieces of information. This can be sent after, or it can be sent, from your website. So they can click on the link when they inquire. It takes them to the applicant form. They fill in all that information, then it just comes through. So everything's there to start with. But the problem is that you don't want to have a tenant or a prospective tenant fill out a big long form before, they even know if they're going to, pass their references or their credit checks, because then they might not want to do it and it might kind of turn them off. That's what we found. Another question, I've sent app to tenants, but don't get much take up / adoption. Do you have any suggestions to improve usage? More than happy to walk you through some suggestions of mine. If you want to, again, email me, max.gray@arthronline.co.uk. I'll leave my email in the chat actually, so you can all see it. Because that saves me having to say it all the time. Okay, I've left my email in the chat. But yes, so there's a couple of things to do really. So one, the tenants are able to raise issues through the app. So if I just goes to Tenant app really quickly, so this is what the Tenant app looks like on your account. Let me just refresh this. So this is what it would look like. So like I said, if you're on the professional enterprise package, you want to have your logo here, but the tenant can go ahead and they can raise an issue, which is a key thing to, help you keep track of everything. But what you can always say is, if you're not using the Arthur Online app, it might take slightly longer for us to respond to you. So please make sure you use it so that we can have the issue straight away and then we can get the issue fixed as quickly as possible. But also when it comes to kind of general information, you can say to them, look, all the information is on your tenant booklet, which is in the Tenant app. If you want to see, the Wi-Fi codes and what to do if I lose my keys and what to do in case of a power cut, please don't message us, but use the Tenant app, as we won't get back to you, quickly. There's certain strategies that you can utilize, okay? Is there anywhere that the tenants can find a video on how to use the Tenant app? Yes, there is. There's actually an article about it on the knowledge base. If you go onto our knowledge base, so if you go onto our knowledge base, which you'll find on our website, so help and resources, and then knowledge base. If you type in Tenant app, it should show you an article on summary of the apps, how to credit check your tenants, how tenants access their account. I believe this is the one that you want to send them. So you'd want to send them this, which is showing them how they can access their account, the steps they need to follow, what happens when they're in the app, and then a little bit of information about kind of how it all works, so how their app actually works in principle. Okay. So really, really simple. And again, what I'll do is I will just put this in the chat for everyone to, send out as a link. Perfect. Right. So going back to the main topic of this conversation, so the tenancy onboarding side of things, let me just answer these questions. Answer. Right. So what you've done is that you've added a tenancy. So you've got them in there. This one's a current tenant, but you're going to have them as a prospective tenancy, and then you're going to have them as an approved tenant. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to more once they're a tenancy, and you'd want to go ahead and click tenancy mail merge. Now, what this would allow you to do, providing that you have a mail merge in the system already, is to automatically populate that contract, so the AST, with all the information that we've uploaded to Arthur. So where it normally says, where you have to fill in their name, it would automatically say Max Gray. Where you have to fill in their property, it would say Demo House. Where you have to fill in their start date, you can see here it says it's the 1st of November. So all that would populate into the tenancy agreement for us. And then what you could do is you could simply send that agreement off via signable to be signed by all the tenants, to then be signed by the owner, or yourselves as the property managers if you're acting on behalf of the owner, and then come back into Arthur as a signed tenancy document. Okay, so it's a very, very simple workflow. And if you want to know exactly how that entire process works, I know we're kind of, on a time constraint here, but I'm happy to walk anyone through how that process works in a lot of detail on kind of a one-to-one basis if you're interested. Okay. Right. So in terms of the signable side of things, so when you do send off something via signable, if you go to documents and digital signature, you can then see everything here. So you'll be able to see, Tony Blog is the tenant, and I can see exactly when that was sent off to them. I can see exactly when the envelope was generated. I can see when it was viewed by the tenant, when it was signed, and then it would move on to the next person, the next person. And once everyone signed it, it would then say, the envelope has been signed by all parties. Okay, perfect. Now, in terms of what I was saying about the automation around kind of embedding the applicant form, this is what brings me on to the automation again. So if I go into tenancies, you'll see here that we have automation around a tenancy status set to approved. We have automation around the tenancy status set to prospective, and around every single other action as well, which we're probably going to cover in the webinars in, next week and the week after. I think they're, every week or 2 weeks. Sorry, one question from the chat. Fantastic. Thank you who wrote in the chat. Yes, the signable function is great. And whoever's not using it, please sign up to it, because it really is a great asset to you to make sure that everything is automated rather than, a manual process, which some of you might still be using. So if I go to tenancy status set to approved, so what we could do here is I've got this action that I've added in myself called applicant form. So if I go ahead and edit that, let me show you what this says. So what it will basically show is, hi, Max, thanks, we can add, you have now passed your references and credit check. Please find next steps below. And then you'll be able to say, here's a link to your applicant form. That will then send to that particular tenant, or prospective tenant to fill out, and then it would come back into the tenant's information. So you don't have to do anything again. It's all just a single entry process, and it's sent as soon as you change the tenancy status from prospective to approved. Okay. Show of hands, does everyone understand how that would work in principle? Fantastic. That's good to hear. And what you can also do is, how many people would also embed tasks and subtask checklists into their automation by a show of hands, or have used checklists in the account at the moment who are on the professional or enterprise package? Okay, fine. But not actually too many of you. So what you can do at this stage is, it's very important once you change a stage from prospective to approved, that the relevant property manager or the relevant landlord actually gets, continues to get updated about, what they should do at that stage. So what you'd want to do potentially is you'd want to add a task around this automation as well. You'd want to call it, next steps. And then you could put your task type in. You can change this to anything you want. So you can add your own task types in if you're on the professional enterprise package. And then what you've got here is you've got your subtask template. So you've got like a move-in checklist. You've got a certificate checklist, a water leak checklist, a tenancy expiring checklist. So if I was to click this move-in checklist and assign it to, myself, what would happen is that as soon as they become an approved tenant, it will then send this move-in checklist to me. I would then have to tick it off as I go along. So examples of this might be, now that they've become approved, I now have to send the AST off. I now have to make sure that it's signed. I need to make sure that the tenant has seen the EPC, the gas safety, the EICR, the fire alarm certificates. I need to make sure that they have the link to the app so that they can log on before, so that they can see all their general information. All these things can be created as a subtask. So if I go into tasks and subtask templates. You'll see that right here. So we've got this move-in checklist, for example, but we can just create a new one and say approve tenancy checklist. So you might want to say sign AST, send EPC, send gas safety, send EICR, et cetera, et cetera. And then what will happen is that when, the task is created, you'll just have to tick off those items and, you'll then be able to see how far along that task you are. So this is an example of one. So if I just go to this leaky tap, just an example of a checklist that I generated when, a task is created. Obviously not relevant to today's session, but you can get the idea of what a checklist looks like. So, if a water leak is happening, I can see if the leak's still present, call the water leak expert, and then once the water leaks things, have a drink at the pub, basically. And you can see that as I tick this off, it shows you how completed that task is. And for the high level property managers or the owners of the properties, it means that, you can just print out a report to see how many task checklists have been completed and who's behind on them and who's ahead, just to make sure that, you have accountability in your business, which is obviously very, very important to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Okay. Now, the last thing is in terms of messages, so you can actually send group messages to your entire portfolio rather than just sending it kind of one by one. A lot of people know that this exists, but a lot of people don't actually use it. So you can send a new group message. You can select your group, so property active tenants. And then you could just select all, and they'd all be pulled in as like a blind copy. And you could then type in your email and also send an email and an SMS. So this is again where, you might want to download some of those SMS credits after today's webinars to be able to send emails and SMSs for, super important things like, Merry Christmas or, a COVID update or something like that. It's just important that potentially they have both forms of communication. All right. Right. We do have one question. How do you see a list of your tasks for the day? Very good question. So if I go into tasks, what you can do is that you have a lot of filters here. So what you can say is you can say the assignee. So, I can see all the ones that are by me, and I can also see the ones that, have a due date of today. So obviously there's nothing for me, but you can see the ones that are, due today, for example. But also on your calendar, you'll be able to filter by everything that's going on a specific day. So I could take out, certificates, inventories, tenancies, viewings if I wanted to, and all I'm left with is are my tasks, and I can see exactly what's due on what day. I find searching for keyword in all messages doesn't work. Okay. Do you mean, I'm assuming that you mean in email and SMS history, or are you talking about if I go to messages and I go to see all messages, if you try and search in there? You put yes, but I don't know which part you're talking about. Do you mean this part that we're in right now? The latter. Okay. So yeah, perfect. So in terms of that, so you can search. So you're saying if I search by a conversation, yep. So I don't actually have. We'll have to talk about that in more detail. If you want to email me on that message, we can talk about that in your specific portfolio in more detail, because obviously the messages that I have are going to be different to the messages that you have in your account. Perfect. One more question. I love the group messaging facility, but would really love it if two groups could be selected, i.e. property active tenants and owners. Very interesting. Okay, that's noted, and I'll pass that on to the development team. I find I struggle on that too. What was the other option you showed for looking at message history? Yeah, so there's two ways to look at message history. The first one, if I go to my name here and I go to email and SMS history, you'll be able to see all your emails that I've sent, and also, any SMS messages that have been sent through the system. But also if I go to messages here and I go to see all messages, it will then bring me up a log of all the messages that I have on the go at the moment. Okay. Right, so I realized that people have a very busy lives, and I realize I've been droning on for, the past kind of 45 minutes. Does anyone have any particular questions that they want to ask about the tenancy onboarding journey and kind of how it can be streamlined to their portfolio. The key takeaways from here are really to utilize us as support as much as possible when it comes to kind of automated events. So automation is going to be key in scaling your business, but in also making sure that you can streamline the tenancy process. I would suggest for sure making sure that your tenants are using the Tenant app, because when it comes to task management and when it comes to, brand identity and awareness, tenants are now in the 21st century. They love technology. And so having an app to hand that connects to one centralized system is going to be the best thing for them. If any of you want to talk further about kind of the applicant form and how we can bespoke it for you, or also about kind of how we can set up, these digital signatures and mail merge. Again, you've got my email, so please feel free to email me after this conversation about it. I've done many mail merges before. I've helped many people, just like yourselves, and yeah, happy to help any more. So if anyone has any questions, I'll leave the Q&A open for about the next 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap things up. Did you say the Tenant app is available on the standard package? The answer is yes, the Tenant app is available on the standard package, but you're not able to white label it. So people on the professional and enterprise package will be able to put their logo here, and they'll be able to change their colors here. But people on the standard package, their tenants will just have access to the Arthur logo and also to, just as typical blue colors. Okay. Fantastic. Oh, we do have another question. Sorry. Yes, let me show you through the message history options. So I do go. It's difficult. I know so much about the system that maybe I go a little bit too far. So if I go to my name here, so this is the first option. So go to your name in the top left-hand corner, and then in settings you click on email and SMS history. Now that's the first way to see any emails sent and also any SMS messages sent. The second way is if I go to messages here, and then I go down here, you'll see it says see all messages. So if I just click on that, it will then bring up all of my messages that have been, opened in the system, or any new messages that I have. And I can again filter by all messages, by the ones that are simply SMSs, or I can search by a particular person or contact. Okay. Right. Well, yeah, it's good that I made you aware of this first option then, because yeah, the second one is a little bit more complex. So definitely use the first option in future just to see, what messages have been sent at what time. It's great from a compliance perspective. So yeah, I'm going to leave the chat open for a couple more minutes. Does anyone have any specific questions? Don't raise your hands. Just message me in the Q&A section, and I'll be happy to answer them at your convenience. Perfect. And any people who are new to Arthur and who this is the first time they're actually seeing the system, it's very simple in terms of the user interface. We're constantly changing the way that things look based on, how we like to use it, but also kind of how the improvements that our clients give us. We're very open to kind of improvements, and we love to hear from everyone. In terms of the main kind of USPs, everything's kept in one place. So a lot of people before they come to Arthur are using spreadsheets, or they're using a third-party system for, financials, and then for, spreadsheets, and then for logging tenancy and maintenance issues. And this just allows you to put everything in one centralized location rather than having to use lots of different and separate systems to reconcile and to make sure your data is all held in one place. So if you are looking for a change, please feel free to just, get in touch and book a demo with myself, because I'm happy to take you through that part of the software. Right, so it doesn't seem like we have any questions coming through from the chat. Just by a show of hands, how helpful was today's session? Amazing. That's a really great response. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. That's a great one too. Thank you. It most certainly is an impressive system. So yes, if you want to find out more, please feel free to drop me an email on that part of things. And if you guys have any more questions about the tenancy onboarding, yeah, just message me on my email. I get back to people, very, very quickly. And we can just set up kind of a half an hour call or something just to go through the system in more detail and just make sure you're completely up to speed with how you can optimize the system the best way possible. I speak to a lot of people, and there are people who have been using the system for a couple of years even, and when I show them how they can optimize the system further, they're blown away. And it really helps them when they're streamlining in there. Even if you have 10 units, 50 units, 100 units, 500 units, it doesn't really matter. You still want to be able to streamline the system in the same way. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Was great. Fantastic. That's great. Thanks so much for that positive feedback. If you do love using Arthur at the moment, and you do and you haven't done this already, we do actually have a trust pilot. So if you would be able to leave kind of a 5-star review of how you've been enjoying the system, that would be great. You just type in Arthur and it comes up with Arthur Online, and you can just leave us a really positive review. We're doing very good at the moment. We've got lots of 5-star reviews. So if you are new to the system, please, have a look through our reviews just to see how our customers are enjoying it. Thanks for that feedback. Yes, I appreciate that you guys thought it was a great session. Perfect. Amazing. Thanks very much. Perfect. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to wrap everything up here. And yeah, again, my email's in the chat, so please take it down before we stop this conversation and we end the meeting. But it's been absolutely wonderful showing you guys through the Tenancy onboarding process. It's been great showing you through the automation. I hope everyone took something away from it. And yeah, look forward to seeing you guys on the next webinar. Amazing. Thanks, everyone, and have a lovely afternoon.